Can you all see that?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm gonna start letting everyone in. Wawa is struggling to see me, so give me one moment, okay?
Saying, yeah, it's strange. I'm right now using Facebook Portal, and my access is not exactly all that great. I see the shared screen, but I don't see the interpreters. Like I see oh yeah, I see Dane. I see you right here, but it looks like it's switching to different people. Yeah, because I don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm like using my laptop or if it's because it's Facebook Portal. So I think maybe when the share is done, we can go back to the grid view and see everybody's face like that. Okay, great. It looks like it's a lot better. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this month's Diversability Unplugged, Elevating Culture with Disabled Musicians. While we give everyone time to join by waiting a few minutes before we begin, I want to take this time to describe the image on the screen. It's a cream background with navy text. At the top are the words, "Please remember to keep microphones muted throughout the event." Below that are the words, "Diversability Unplugged, Elevating Culture with Disabled Musicians." Above, 4 pictures of our panelists. Starting from the left to right, Sabeerah Najee, she, her, DJ, concept producer for Accessible Plus, a Black woman with a pink power wheelchair smiling on stage with a white outfit accented with purple flames at the bottom and leg affas and Black shoes. Warren Snipe, he, him, CEO of Wawa's World, a Black man with salt and pepper beard and hair smiling, wearing a Black V-neck sweater. Keith Jones, he, him, President and CEO of Soul Touch and Experiences, LLC, a Black man wearing glasses, seated in a wheelchair on stage. And James Ian, he, him, musician, a Black man with a light beard and mustache, wearing a navy blue t-shirt with his hair shaved on the sides and the rest of his long Black hair pulled in a bun on top of his head. Below is a navy bar with white text that reads, moderated by Lachi and Arielle Dance, Ph.D. The words, "Join our online communities, the Diversability Leadership Collective at," and it has the hyperlink, and our Facebook group at another hyperlink, bit.ly, Diversability Community. 3 logos line the bottom, a Navy Diversability, a Black RAMPD, and an Interpreter Now 1. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Hello again, everyone. My name is Arielle Dance, and for accessibility reasons, I am a Black woman. I'm wearing glasses, I have a short cut, and I'm wearing a printed t-shirt, some things on my wrists, bracelets, and a watch. I have the honor of being the content writer here at Diversability, where we are an entirely disabled team, and we work to ensure that we are elevating disability pride together through community and conversation. So tonight, we aren't just elevating disability pride, but culture, as well as we celebrate Black Music Appreciation Month in collaboration with RAMPD. All proceeds from this event will be donated directly to RAMPD, so super excited about that. I have the honor of co-moderating this with the founder and president of RAMPD, multi-award winning recording artist Lachi. So excited. Before we get to our powerhouse panelists, Lachi, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your work, starting with an image description, if you don't mind.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. You can hear me well, right?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. I'm Lachi, she, her, Black woman cornrows. I'm wearing a orangish, blood orange blazer. Behind me is my keyboards. I'm in my home studio here in New York, the land of the Lenape people. And as Arielle said, I am the founder and president of RAMPD. We're really excited to be collaborating on this event today with Diversability, and very grateful for all the donations that we will receive from this awesome event. I am also a recording artist, a songwriter, and a host that has been able to travel the world for my art and been in a lot of situations where I hid my disability in order to get ahead. And so you have no idea how excited I am to be part of a community that celebrates and elevates disability culture through music and disability pride through community building. So I'm really excited to get into today's panel discussion. And I want to encourage all of the other panelists to just do a quick hello and say their visual descriptions for today as well. Do you want to pick who should go first, Arielle?
Sure, let's start with Sabeerah.
On me. Hi, how you doing, everyone? My name is Sabeerah Najee. It's an honor to be here. Honestly, this is amazing. I am a Black woman. I have locks. They are dyed blonde at the end, and I am wearing a Black shirt that says "Protect and Respect Black People." And yes. That is it. Can we popcorn or? Okay. I'm gonna pass it to Keith. Thank you all.
I knew you were going to do that. I was chilling, trying to lay low. Hello, everybody. My name is Keith Jones. I am an African-American male wearing glasses with a blue shirt against a neutral, dirty gray background. And I am currently located in my COVID hideout in New Jersey. And again, it is very honorable to be among the dopest humans on the planet. Thank you again for the opportunity to present. And I think we will either go to Wawa.
What's up, beautiful people? It's your boy Wawa here. And so it's really a blessing to be here. I'm Warren Snipe. Everyone calls me Wawa. He, him, his. I have salt and pepper beard and hair and locks in a bun. I'm wearing a black V-neck t-shirt, and my background is pretty colorful. So I don't know if you know all your rainbow colors, and it's there. So really good to be here. And I'm deaf.
I think that leaves us
Oh, I
with
get to James.
Thank you, James, Ian, he, him, his. I'm wearing a blue t-shirt that says, "They want our rhythm, but not our blues," with white text. I'm in front of a white wall with a picture over me. It's black and white and gray, green plant over my left shoulder, and my hair is shaved with a bun on top. And I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. So excited to have everyone here. So for me, I am the non-musician amongst you all. My background, this is Arielle. I come from a musical theater background, and that was when I was much, much younger. And I sang in the Spelman College Glee Club. So that is the extent of my musical background. So I'm really excited to have this conversation, more so as like a fangirl and less of a musician. And I'm really excited to hear all about it. And also really excited that there are so many people here from the New York, New Jersey area, because I'm also in New Jersey. So we're all just sitting here in a little hub and so connected to so many people. I even saw people in the chat also from our area. So how interesting. We're all connected right here in the virtual space, but also so close. So I'm ready to dive in. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, so panelists, you can answer every question, some questions, do it how you want, how you feel comfortable, but don't feel like you have to answer everything. It's okay. And then Lachi will kind of pick and add some additional flavor in between. So these are just the bland questions, and then she'll add her flavor. All right, so first question. What does disability culture mean to you, and how does music play a role in that? I'm gonna go with James first.
Disability culture to me means just our lifestyle. I think there are certain things that are unique to the disability community, which should be a part of the culture. But I also think disability culture is a part of general culture, because disability is a part of life. And I think music, how it plays into, I think music has always been a driver of culture, of social change. Look at civil rights movement and things like that. A lot of artists are really pushing that, and I think same thing is goes here with music. It's really pushing forth disability culture. I think there's something about music and rhythm that I think is very innate to human beings that we just kind of grasp onto. So.
This is Lachi. I actually had a follow-up for you specifically, James. So recently you put out the song Spaces, which celebrates your disability and your difference. And when we're talking about how disability culture and music come together, do you feel that that song was able to really express your disability culture more so than you just trying to explain it to people? I mean, how did you bringing that song together bring out your disability culture in a way that words couldn't?
Yes, I think it did. It's a really good question, and it requires some thought. But I would say, in terms of my specific disability, there are a lot of wheelchair users in that community and in my community, and so we definitely highlighted that in the video. But even going broader outside of my specific disability, one of the main themes that we really wanted to convey was that idea of us not being inspirational by virtue of having a disability. And so we really wanted to just celebrate the achievements and talents that we as disabled people that we have. And so that was really a focus of the song. And I think it did do a good job. That I think one of the themes is just occupying spaces. All of us occupy so many spaces. We play so many roles in life, just as non-disabled people do. And I think the song talks about that. I also think one of the themes was just celebrating life in its big and small moments. It doesn't have to be these really grandiose things that disabled people do that warrant respect or praise or anything. And just be like, hey, we're just hanging out with our friends, having a meal with family, doing the everyday things, and that's beautiful and it should be celebrated. So I think the song does do, in my opinion, I think the song does that.
I actually had one other follow-up for you, Wawa. And by the way, I'm a huge fangirl. You already know that. I'd be blowing up your Instagram DMs. Deaf culture and music. In your experience, how has music helped elevate deaf culture? Because I know that a lot of folks who are not familiar, a lot of times people don't recognize or realize what kind of impact music actually has on the deaf community. So can you speak to that, how music has helped, in your experience, elevate deaf culture?
Well, for a long time, many people had this saying, if you're deaf, you're not supposed to like music. You're not supposed to be able to hear music. And so that's a huge myth. The deaf community in general loves music. They can feel it. They enjoy the bass, the drums, all these kind of instruments in it. Whether they hear it, maybe they can identify some of the instruments, but it's the feeling that's important about it. Music sees no color. Music just enjoys bringing the emotion, the freedom of to be yourself, to be free in music. So when I developed a music genre called hip hop, and the sign is hip hop, and so it means hip hop through deaf eyes. So it's this, we know through the hearing culture about the hip hop world, but through deaf eyes, what it's like. So we have some similarities, some contracts. So I show the beauty through the sign. So when you bringing this from the heart and out, that's your baby, that's your work, but you don't see it until we give you a visual. You can read it and you imagine, but when we sign it, you see the beauty of signing and what we providing. So it's about elevating the deaf community, squashing the myth, letting you in our world to see what deaf culture is like. It's beautiful. And so there's so much that's still going on, and it's still uncharted territories right now. But if not now, when?
Mhm.
If not me, who? I have all the resources. I've worked hard for this. I developed this for many years. And so it wasn't an easy journey, but it was a worthy one.
That's
Warren, oh, sorry.
no,
Lachi.
go on.
Warren, you touched on something, and we can toggle between the two questions, but you touched on the influence of Black music and it's how it's shaped global culture, right? You're talking about hip hop and how it's shaped our culture. And I'm just curious how anyone can answer this, how you see Black music shaping our culture overall. Still, is it all mush now? What do you think? I'm just asking.
Can I toss this to Keith?
Oh, yes.
Sabine, I'm gonna let you do the DJ mix once I'm done, I'm
I got you.
I'm the Southern guy. So historically, we understand we'll just deal with the last 500 years. So the last 500 years, because we have to be specific about cultural and particularly Black influence on the world in terms of a whole. The Afro-Caribbean, the Afro diaspora has always influenced everything from the Caribbean to China. And so when we talk about the influence of Blackness on music, we have to first acknowledge that the construct of Blackness is a construct juxtaposed to whiteness. So if whiteness was made up, so therefore they needed Blackness. We adopted Blackness and took it. We went from being Negroes, to colored, to Afro-Americans, to African Americans, to Black. So the influence on our music, good old Southern cuisine is slave food with white people cooking it. So let's be real about what our influences are. The influence that we have in the world is, for those of us who do hip hop, whether it was jazz, whether it was blues, whether it was R&B, whether it was rock and roll, it was born out of the indomitable spirit that we had surviving the Middle Passage and finding glory in breathing and existing. So the impact is universal. The cultural touchstones are, you can't turn on the radio without hearing Black or faux Black. We'll call, as they call palm colored. So I think the intersectionality of our Blackness, our cultural input, and our cultural touchstones. If you talk about the originality of man, you can't get no Blacker than us. So the beauty of our touchstone is that we do influence everything from classical to rock and roll to deep house to EDM to reggaeton. And don't get me started with bachata. So that's the way I kind of see it.
This is Lachi, and just real quick, I think everyone should know that Keith Jones is a recent Emmy winner. He doesn't mention it because he tries to act humble, but we all know he ain't.
Yes, that is. Yes, that is.
But thank you so much for that. And I think I recently just watched something called Historian's Take, and they were talking about black scent, how black scent is used very widely, and how a lot of people just equate it to internet speak. But really what it is, an appropriation of, Black colloquialisms and communications. And I find it very interesting that a lot of people don't know that the song Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog by, what's that guy's name? Elvis Presley is actually a cover by a Black artist. And so things of that nature, there's a lot of influence. But I also want to toss that same question over to Sabeerah, because there is a lot of talk about the DJ world and it being very heavily dominated by, the straight cis het white male. And here you are doing your thing in that space. So I want to toss that same question to you about, the influence of Black music on, different genres of music, whether it be country or whether it be dance music.
Okay, perfect. Can I actually add something to? It's basically my answer is going to combine the first and the second question. So first, when I think of disability culture, I think about community, and I think about those constant battles, those constant acts of defiance and things like that. And when you tie that into music, I would actually argue that disability culture is in fact counterculture. You know what I mean? The civil rights movement is counterculture. Hip hop is counterculture, pretty much and I'm really glad Keith brought that up, because it's like when you have, whiteness, you need Blackness, you know what I mean? That necessity. And, a lot of the things that we created, yep, Big Mama Thornton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. But a lot of the things that we've created were out of, that counterculture of, colonialism. So I think when I think from like a DJ aspect, Keith brought up house music. House music was created by Black people. You have, God, why can't I think of his name right now?
You're talking about the Chicago dance scene, right?
The Chicago dance scene. My dad was a big house head. Like before I was born, he from Chicago. He was one of those dudes that would go to Chicago, go to New York, and just follow a bunch of house DJs and stuff like that. And when I think of house music, it came from that underground scene. When you think of house, you think of underground. You think of stuff like Ron Hardy, for example. I used to play Ron Hardy back in the day, Frankie Knuckles, all of these people that, created a whole genre of music out of the fact that there wasn't enough of us. So when I think about how we're shaping things now, I think it's just kind of the resurgence or the reemergence of us, coming back. When I look at, groups like Soulection that, I'm a part of and that I'm affiliated with, and, a lot of these DJs, a lot of that whole sound of EDM is still there, but, folks are still paying tons of money, selling out shows just to see a house club, go to, listen to a house DJ right now. We coming back, you know what I mean? And we never really left. It's just they're figuring it out. They're catching up. So, when I see the DJ scene changing, I'm noticing a change in the music that we're playing. Back in the day, everybody wanted to hear dubstep and Skrillex. Now you can't go to a vibe show without playing Tim's. You know, like you couldn't play that back in the day. You know what I mean? It's like, so the culture is just the mainstream culture is catching up to what we've been on. And I think the thing is, we're essentially giving history lessons right now when it comes to it. But I mean, we created everything. We the alpha, but
Okay, she said we the alpha. Got it.
Everything. That's what she said. I'm going to shift us for a moment, and not really, because everything's connected. So as Black disabled musicians, do you feel like your art needs to have an advocacy lens? Like, do you feel like you have to, like you're responsible in some way for creating this narrative and taking a stance against ableism within your work?
So,
Go ahead, Keith. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
oh no, you can pick and choose somebody else. I'll
If
just
you
work.
if you have something already, scrounging up
Okay.
in your brain, go for it.
Right. Well, I'll say this as a person who, along with my partners, Rob Denoise Temple, RIP, and Leroy Moore, and along with everybody on this panel, the question kind of, we kind of are answering that question. And the answer is yes. And it's not a direct answer. It's sort of like Sabeerah said, we are the, us breathing is living defiance of what Blackness and disability is in the context of America, in the context of music, in the context of social justice. So the advocacy lens, all Black music has had advocacy in it. You talk about blues, you talk about gospel, you talk about, rock and roll, you talk about any of all of these were, particularly over the last half century, were reflexive and cultural responses to, okay, the crazy white man is outside. How can we sing and make sure that we have joy and he don't come in here and burn down our whole village or burn down our city? And so we have always had that, the historical, the cultural, socioeconomic lens to our music, interwoven with understanding that our humanity is to be elevated and celebrated. Go down, sweet Moses, swing low, sweet chariot. Those were, the popularization of, they were freedom songs and they were slave. That was a vibrational response from our ancestors to hold on to our strength. So when you talk about advocacy in our music, it's kind of inherent. Now, do we need a lane for it? I'm trying to get to the point we ain't got to talk about this no more. Because damn it, I'm tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of people's stupidity because racism, bias, ableism, sexism, homophobia are choices made from low-calorie intellectual minds. So in terms of, is there a cultural advocacy narrative? I mean, in my music, absolutely. I'm a Black man in America. I could get shot going to the store right after this Zoom and won't nobody to talk about it unless we get a hashtag started. So in terms of, is there advocacy? Absolutely. Is it intended? That's written in the music and the lyrics. Is it implied just by its breathing? The answer is yes.
This is Lachi, and that was a very intense response because it is true. Music comes from our experience, right? And our experience, especially as disabled folk, intersection with Blackness, possibly intersection with queerness or with, gender difference. This is our experience that we're writing and singing about. And, advocacy is already just the fact that we're trying to share our experience with other people already has advocacy baked into it. Just using your voice to talk about your experience is already advocacy for Black people. So I definitely agree with that. And that was hard, talking about, hey, you can turn off this Zoom right now. And unless a couple of white people decide to get a hashtag started, that's it. And that's a very true hard truth. I want to pivot to you, James, because I really love what it says on your shirt. They want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues. Can you just talk about that shirt for a little bit and how it applies to you and your music and to like what we're talking about here as Black disabled musicians trying to share our voice?
Yeah, so I think this kind of ties into like earlier questions, but music drives culture. Like fashion, what we consume in terms of media, sports, everything. And throughout my life, like I've seen that was put forth by Black people. Where we're doing all the artsy stuff, all the cultural driving, and then white people adopt it, and then that's deemed cool or they appropriate it. Like you see certain artists doing things like you said with Black scent, or like Miley Cyrus doing like hip hop or something, and it's just eaten up and so successful. Then like a Black person could come along and do the same thing and it doesn't sell or whatever. And so the shirt to me is like, they want the flavor, they want the Black, the cool aspects of being Black, the street cred, the elevation and status, all that stuff, but they don't want what actually comes along with being Black. Like Keith said, he could, you could be shot going to the grocery store. They don't want that. And when someone calls them out on it or whatever it might be, then they can very easily discard that and go back to whatever, white thing it is, and it's all good. It can be cool. Like, to say up the Miley Cyrus example, there was a thing where she was like, I'm done with hip hop. I'm going to go back and do whatever. And it was like, cool, so they can use our stuff and then throw it away. We're not compensated for it and all that stuff. So that shirt just to me means, you can reap the good aspects of, what Black people do culturally. But then, on the other side of the coin, like you don't have to suffer the effects that we do with our existence and living. So that's what the shirt means. It's a Black owned shirt. It's a shirt from a Black owned business. I forget the name of it, but I saw it and I was like,
Oh, come on.
gotta have this. Yeah, it might be historically Black tees. There's a couple. There's another one called Only in America. I get their stuff, but yeah. So that's what it means to me. There, white people can jump between these two lines, two sides without repercussion, and it's all good. Go on about their day, monetize it, be very successful. Black people do not have that. There's a real risk of danger for our lives, our livelihood. So that's what it means to me.
This is Lachi. I want to hop back in one more time really quickly and to just also sort of, I want to toss the question to Wawa as well. But before I do, I want to widen the net and just let folks remember that it's not necessarily just a Black versus white thing, right? There are Asian singers and rappers that also use Black scent, quote unquote Aquafina. Let's say, for instance, white identifying Latinas versus the Afro-Latina contingent. That is also something that happens a lot and has its own sort of American issues as well. So I just want to let the folks in the audience recognize that it really isn't just a Black versus white thing. It is definitely a Black set versus non-Black. And then when we talk about the Latino contingent, there is definitely a very stark white identifying Latina versus Afro-Latina contingent. But I do want to toss it to you, Wawa, in terms of advocacy and music. I think the question is, as a person intersectioned with Blackness and disability and being American and whatever, do you feel that you must advocate with your music, or that, hey, you can just talk about love and dancing, or is there just a need to really get the message out about these intersections through your music as well?
Well, for me, because as a Black deaf man, it's I don't know, in the Black disabled community, it's I hope I'm not causing any trouble when I'm saying it. It kind of feel like a branch out becomes the Black deaf community because of the signs. Okay, how we express without Black sign, our Black ASL. We have like slang, just like everyone's speaking in slangs, but we have hand gesture. But oftentimes people in the past would actually misunderstand that and think it's gang signs. Some get shot, some get in a fight, a lot of misunderstanding comes in. So there is a difference between gang signs and Black ASL or ASL in general, or sign in general. But people, it's a constant battle in some areas, depending on where you go. But my story is about bringing Black deaf culture. We bring it out there. We explain what we go through. I mean, I have to explain Black deaf culture, love, spread that love, because we know this world needs it, because this is crazy right now. And this is why I created with show some love. And I really believe in that. This is the world that needs it right now. Acceptance and acceptability. I mean, it's what it's needed right now. I mean, when people see someone who has a disability, and the able-bodied people in general, they see us and they're thinking, okay, what is this? They're not sure what to make of it. Back then, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, and he had people who were blind. Yeah, they was like, okay, I can hear the voice, I can understand the phonics. But when they start seeing people in wheelchair or some people sign, the first thing coming to their mind is like, okay, how is this possible? How can you perform on stage? Or how can you hear the music? How do you know exactly what's going on? So we have ways of giving. For example, as me as a Black deaf artist, I always have lyric videos that pops up behind me. So when I'm signing, you can read and hear the music. I don't have to use my voice. My voice is on the track and I'm showing it. So I'm giving you accessibility in multiple different ways. Even for people who have low vision, my video is able for people with low vision able to see. So I like to include. So what we do is we try to provide the best possible access for everyone, and we're always open for a change. And I'm just hoping in the music mainstream be more open for people who have disability. I mean, for like conferences, sometimes I get rejected as exclusive. When I tell them I want to be in this conference, and they're like, "What? You're deaf? That's impossible. You're wasting my time." Well, things like that. Oh, still today it happens. So it's an ongoing battle, but it's a battle that I will gladly accept if it helps the community in the future, and I know it will.
So you're talking about pushing into the community. You're talking about making space, taking up space. And I love that. But I think for some people, they hear no and they're like, okay. And they'll shrink back into themselves and say, maybe this wasn't for me. And
Right.
there's some research that shows, and I can give you stats, and I mean, the researcher in me will easily give you stats, but it pretty much shows that people with disabilities will go into these spaces and put themselves at risk, hurt themselves. Let's see, I'll read it. Let's say this. Over 2/3 of musicians with disabilities risk their health for a gig. 70% do what they can do to conceal their disabilities for fear of losing a gig. So how can we start changing that narrative? Because you're saying, do it anyway, make space, take up space. But some people are like, I'm scared.
Exactly. It's a fight. It will always be a fight until the people start to really understand it. You're talking about millions of artists out there. How many out of all the able-bodied or hearing people, musicians, professional? There's millions, but how many are disabled?
Mm.
That's what we should be
The five
banding
in this room.
together.
Mhm.
What, say that again?
I'm being stupid.
But see, when we push on for that, this is inspiration for aspiring disabled musicians to come out. Okay, so some of them probably afraid. I mean, at the fact that when people found out I was deaf, I got turned away. I mean, I said I want to be able to perform on the stage, and they're like, yeah, cute kid, yeah, they're very funny. And just because I'm signing, I'm deaf, until you have to create something that will make them think twice. Okay, and that's going to be an ongoing battle, whether they try to provide a ramp for people in wheelchair or try to provide assistance. Some counselors will constantly fight you, and they have a hard time believing at the fact that you have a disability. So when we have a disability, sometimes we are kind of afraid to approach that. So we figure out a way how to get around it. So now I'm at a point where I'm done trying to get around it. I'm going to go straight through you, and you're going to respect that.
Mhm. Amen. This is Lachi. I 100% wholeheartedly agree. I know at RAMPD, recording artists and music professionals with disabilities, one of the things that we really try to push for is higher visibility. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is cultivate this new wave of role models for future disabled musicians. One of the things I know we did at RAMPD was we helped get a ramp, speaking of ramps, we helped get a ramp at the Grammys, and we helped get ASL interpreters on the red carpet. And this is so that we could show on a national level to people with and without disabilities, to the deaf and hearing alike, that people with disabilities belong on these stages too, that there's a ramp to the stage, that you could get on it if you won an award. So we want to start showcasing ourselves more, because that'll start getting people less afraid to be to pursue this career. And it'll also get the non-disabled community less afraid to book people like us. And so that's what I think is such a great, and that's why panels like this, having such cream of the crop, amazing. By the way, Wawa, he tries to act like he's humble too, but he sure ain't. He has performed at the Super Bowl. Okay, so everybody please just know that. All right. We have legends here on this panel. And I want to make sure, I mean, us at RAMPD want to make sure that folks like this are celebrated just as much as the other household names are celebrated. I want Miley Cyrus and Sabeerah and Najee to be as household names as each other can be. So speaking of, so that's just my take on it, but I do want to open it up to Sabeerah. You haven't spoken in a while. You heard the stats. And
Yeah.
firstly, those are UK stats. We don't even have studies done in the US. So that's a whole nother
That's insane.
problem I have. Yeah. But anyway, how can we change numbers like that? 70% of people hiding their disability or just shrinking and cowering away because they got one no and they're just like giving up on their career.
Oh yeah. I really think, you know, to the point of Wawa's statement, go right through somebody. My mom's in the chat, she's gonna be mad at me for saying this, but like I've risked my life so many times for like gigs. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, like doing Coachella, it was a dream come true, but like when you think about COVID and like disability, it's like, oh my God, it's scary, but it was worth it. And you know, I would do it again. I'm not even gonna lie, because you know, I knew what it was not only going to do for myself, but for the community as a whole. I started my career just being at the right place at the right time and forcing myself to be out here. You know what I mean? You know, I've had friends and family, you know, they wondered why I was always, you know, at this store or hanging out, you know, at this party and that party or whatever, these industry parties or whatever. And it all paid off, but I did that on purpose because I knew I got tired of going through those same people who were essentially gatekeeping. I was like, why go through the gatekeeper when I could just hop the fence? You know what I mean? So my thing is that, you know, if somebody's gatekeeping and you do get that no, if you feel you're ready for that, if that's how you feel in your heart of hearts, you know, you've crossed your, you know, your T's and dotted your I's, made sure that, you know, you're physically safe just as much as you are mentally, you know, ready for it. Take that opportunity and find somebody who isn't gatekeeping. If you get a no, go to the person that's in charge of them.
There you go. And she did that too. She works for Golden Voice. She advises Golden Voice, who does all of the major desert festivals.
But just
So,
yeah.
right? So she's not joking. And also, again, she tries to pretend she's humble too, but she's got that resume. I love that you said that actually, and I want to toss it to you, James, but the thing that you said that I really liked is like, look, we are the deaf disabled community, right? That means we exist in a world that wasn't built for us. And we're here, we're on this panel, we're doing big things. We're at Super Bowls, we're winning Emmys, we have hit songs, we're doing big things. That means we figured out that option C, because that's what people with disabilities are really, really good at honing on problem solving. And what is the problem that musicians have? It's how to be successful, how to do a gig, how to book a gig. Well, use that same tactic of being able to problem solve as a person with a disability in America, or that tactic of finding independence in interdependence, and use that as your strength. James, I wanted to toss this to you because something that Sabeerah touched on that I wanted us to talk about a little bit, which is being afraid that people will turn you down because of your accommodations. What do you think about, just the writer, the artist writer, the access writer? Like, should artists be saying exactly what they need, or should they hide it to try to get the gig? Or where's the middle line? Is it gig first, just make it work? Or is it, hey, you should book me and accommodate for me? Like, where's that line?
It's tough because I think I understand people being afraid to display their disability or disclose that and then not get the gig. So I mean, I have no problem personally with someone doing that. But I think once you have the gig, I'm also all for putting the disability first, because I think that we're in a moment in time where the conversation, we need to make so much more progress, but the conversation is starting to happen, and there is a little bit of light, that is shining on disability, and so I think this feels like the right moment to me to do that. And so I think your disability can actually be an asset, is what I'm trying to say. But I think you should, always talk about your accommodations, no matter what order that comes in, because there's a real safety issue there. Personally for me, like what Sabeerah said, like, I played so many dangerous shows on stages I had no business being on. Someone helped me get up, whatever. I don't know, but there are really dicey situations, and so I look back on those and I'm like, man, I could have really been hurt. So even now, like, anytime I'm on any sort of set or anything, like, I just played a gig 2 weeks ago, and I was sitting on a bar stool and I had to go on stage, and they didn't realize that, like, it takes me a while to get up no matter what height it is. And like, I got rushed on the stage, and it was a little bit dangerous, and they didn't know that. And that was just kind of like an accidental, I left that out, you don't cover all the bases. And so they're just, those miscommunications, misunderstanding could, like, really, you could get hurt, affect your health. And so I think you really do need to need to say that, because, like, I've omitted things, like, accidentally, and it could have been very bad. So I always think health and safety first. I'd rather be here and live to see the next gig, the next opportunity, than to play a gig and not be here for it. So
Yeah, I'm gonna give it back to you, Arielle, for the next question, but I did want to highlight that I believe, James, you just recently played the Special Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
That was the gig I was referring to.
Okay, there you go. So he didn't want to, again, fake humility. He just played the closing for the Special Olympics, and his recent song Spaces made it onto PBS NewsHour, so he's kind of a big deal. Let me toss it back to you.
I also want to say Lachi's a very big deal.
Right? Like, she's doing a really good job.
Yeah, she's playing humble right now, but okay.
I think today's her day to pump up others.
It's the
And-
one day out of the year that I'll pump up other people.
But at the end, she's gonna say, "Google me."
I'm
That's what she's
saying-
gonna say.
How do you already know my whole life? Like,
2 words, like 2 words for Lachi, Grammy family. That's it. I'm gonna leave it at that.
y'all are too nice.
So, well, but this question that I'm going to ask, and we only have like maybe 2 more questions ish. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat, because we do want to ask our questions from the community as well. But this question is actually aligned, Lachi, to what you're talking about. We're talking about amplifying disabled musicians. So how can we amplify, we being society, unfortunately, but how can Black disabled musicians be better amplified by the music industry, by society, by our communities? Sorry, let me be more clear.
So this is definitely a question that I want to toss to Keith Jones.
All right, okay. I have no answer. I quit. I'm gonna go get drunk. So yeah, no. I think so. I'm gonna be real pragmatic at the first part, and then be aspirational at the end. Pragmatically, before we can talk about elevating Black musicians in our community, we just have to talk about elevating Black disabled people in our community. We just have to talk about the difference, celebrating the cultural identity that we have about being Black, deaf, disabled, Black mental health, Black autistic, and understand that the commonality in all of our humanity is that we are eagerly and aspirationally and lovingly clinging to the identity of Blackness. If that is the spoke, if that is the hub of the wheel, then we can do organically Black deaf culture, Black gay culture, Black LGBTQ culture, Black migrant culture, Black this. So but that requires Black folks to be like, okay, there are crippled Negroes in our community. Because we always talk about Uncle Ramus in the back of the house. We take him a plate when it's the holiday time, but don't nobody want to talk about it when we out in the streets. We have to get over the quote unquote colonizational mindset of our humanity. If you are a Black person with a disability, you have to understand that in this land, in this hemisphere, if you are identified as having a quote human condition that was not profitable in the chattel slavery trade for the last half century, you are alligator bait. We have to talk about how the clinging to Christianity and religion sees our humanity as a condition to be fixed and or healed, so we can be quote unquote normal in a construct of a society that has already deemed our Blackness as being criminal and or inferior. So once we analyze that fact and say, damn it, I'm chocolate and I'm sexy regardless if I roll in a wheelchair or if I'm walking on crutches, or if I can't hear the dream, if I can't hear the beat, I can feel it. Or if I think differently, I see these things that, celebrate our humanity. And it is clearly okay to cling to those things which make us who we are. Aspirationally, damn it, we sexy. And we almost cursed on live. I caught myself. But it's really for us not looking at ourselves and saying, oh, you're a disabled DJ, you're a deaf rapper, you're a blind hip hop artist, you're this, that you just a dope ass artist and you chocolate like us. Whether your hue is deep dark chocolate or that almost to the edge where you white fudge, all of that is what we are. And that celebrating our shared commonality of being in a diaspora that has led to this richness, that has led to soca, that has led to blues, that has led to deep house. I was playing the percolator earlier, so stop playing. It's time for the percolator. I'm back. So it's those kind of things that we have to cling to. And I'm gonna just wrap it up with this. Our elevation as Black disabled musicians must coincide with the elevation of the Black disability community in our social justice struggle. We are not visible in the Urban League, the NAACP, the migrant struggle, Black Lives Matter. We are always seen as an afterthought. That cannot continue. So we can't elevate ourselves from our own community. We can't talk about elevating our humanity. So aspirationally, just keep doing what we're doing and being sexy as we are, as we do it, and floating on the groove that we keep creating.
Oh, Keith, you know how to say it. I mean, for real. And you know how to make us cry and laugh at the same time. But everything you said was true. A few things that y'all should probably note. There are some really great organizations like Krip Hop, KRIP HOP, the Krip Hop Nation, which Keith is a part of, is one of the founders of. Check them out. They definitely elevate hip hop culture as it pertains to disability culture, as well as there's an organization called Sins Invalid, SINSINVALID, and they celebrate all differences and all diversities as it pertains to disability as well. And of course, check out RAMPD, RAMPD. This is why this is happening, but we elevate Black disabled musicians and all disabled musicians and creators. But yeah, that's an intense question. I want to open it up to anybody else that wants to answer that. How can we as society help elevate Black musicians? I mean, Keith definitely hit on every point. So I don't know if anybody can follow that.
Ooh, yeah, that was tough. He got me because like I was just gonna say like just decolonize. You know what I mean? That's exactly why we can't talk about intersectionality. You know what I mean? When you think about colonization, there is no intersectionality. It's very binary. But yet our culture, our original culture, our global original culture, there's so many intersectionalities in that. So, you know, with that, book us. Like,
Yeah.
you want to change some, pay us.
Mhm.
You know, and don't do it in a sense of tokenism. Do it because you want us to fix an issue. You know, be very intentional on how you book us, because we know we're paying attention. But yeah, that's about it.
I think intentionality is a big word. I think that's a really good point. And I think, you know, sticking away from tokenism, we're not, you know, Namel Norris from Four Wheel City, he has this great line. We're not looking for a handout, but we're looking for a hand up. And I really think that's very important because we're not here to be inspo porn. I don't know if we can say that on here, but we're not here to be that. We're here to be professionals like everybody else on the roster. But I think just the most important note is we do need to talk about Black disabled, the Black disabled contingent in general in this country. Just one stat I want to throw out there: 50% of Black disabled men will be arrested by 28. So like will be, so will have been, and that's 50% by 28. And still, we're not talking about this in this country. And if that stat was shocking, it's because we don't talk about this in this country. And so I think that's issue number one. But I do want to toss it back to Arielle if you got your next question.
Lachi, actually, I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I actually wanted to touch on that because I actually have a story about, you know, that exact statistic. A few years ago, and this kind of circles back to how I even got connected with Golden Voice, but a few years ago, a friend of mine, his name is Josh, he was arrested in LA. He was in a wheelchair. He, you know, was protesting about George Floyd, and he was protesting at City Hall. Police snatched him out of his wheelchair, you know, beat him a couple times, broke his whole wheelchair, and arrested him. And he was in jail and he didn't have any medical supplies, couldn't get any medical supplies. And he was in the cell for about 18 hours without anything to help himself use the restroom or anything like that. And, you know, that was kind of the reason why I was even outside to even be connected, because I had once he got released, I went to his his protest, once he was free, we were protesting the fact that he was even arrested in the first place. So, I mean, it's real out here. That's all I wanted to acknowledge.
Thank you for calling that out, Sabeerah, because we need those stories, right? Because sometimes those stories get buried, right? We don't hear those stories all the time. So let's speak it out and let's record it so it can be heard again and again. All right, so we're winding down. And the question I'm going to ask you is about you and the work that you're working on, because we want to hear about your work. And then we'll take some audience questions. We have 2 in queue, but if you have more, please put them in the chat so we can get ready. So I'm going to do a round robin. I'm going to start with Keith because you're on my immediate right. What are you working on?
Trying to go to sleep. So that's one. But honestly, one of the things is working with Lachi, is working with everybody on here, working with Diversability to just get to the point where we can just be, so we can go to the club. So I can stand in the speaker and listen to Sabeerah play Deep Ass House, so I can be like, girl, I'll house you. Or I'll beat that window back, like go back, like deep, that Chicago, you're gonna get kicked out the club. That's the overarching thing, but specifically working with Leroy Moore and UCLA on being global partners to bring this to a global scale, to talk about, women in disability and hip hop. As a girl dad, it's important to me for the girls to be able to look and not have to be like, oh my God, look, we're showing, much respect to Ketanji Brown Jackson, but your grandma is dope too. The lady down the street is dope too. Sabine, Lachi, and Arielle are all dope too. You don't need to be propped up by media to see amazing Black women. So that's the second part. The third part is working on, the disability justice piece. Krip Hop will be starting a streaming service called The Channel, DACHNL, The Channel, launching just to give this a bigger space and a bigger platform, so you don't have to go look for us on YouTube and put in them weird ass hashtags that nobody can ever find. And lastly, just hoping to make the world better, whether, through partners with RAMP and through partnerships with you guys. Just really bringing the music to, we know that music in education is key. We sing songs to teach kids the alphabet. We sing songs to keep how you wash your hands, how you eat, how you be kind to people. So bringing that intersectionality to education, inclusion, social justice, voting, political education. Lastly, and since Leroy keeps calling me Dr. Dre, because I've been working on this album for 17,000 years, is dropping my last CD, so I can say, just like Biggie, this is my 5th album, yo. This is my 5th album. And I done sold about 13 of them, but yeah, the last one is coming. So that's what I'm working on.
Awesome. And we dropped some of your links in the chat. So the chat is full of resources. Make sure you collect those links so you can follow along with the journeys of all of our panelists. James, what are you working on? What are your projects right now?
Yeah, so actually the producers of that worked on Spaces, they produce. So I'm going to be doing some more songs with them. In terms of music, that's just kind of what's next on the horizon. I'm always creating. I just released a hip hop R&B track with another artist last month who also has my same disability. So always creating, looking to do more performances, doing a performance in September in New York. So excited about that. Gonna hang out with Lachi, so that'll be good. And then I have a poem that's gonna be in a Disability of Hierarchies book that'll be published later this year, I believe. I think through the University of Washington. And the poem that that I created is about being disabled and Black. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also an actor, so I'm doing a stage reading that's opening tomorrow through Friday that has disability in it as well. So I'm always auditioning and just trying to really put disability and Blackness out there and just really put it in people's faces. So that's always happening. And then just honestly, Lachi, to kind of touch on that last question you asked about how we can, amplify this. Eventually, I want to own a record label or, be a C-suite at a label and just really put forth disability culture. So that is a long-term goal, but I think that's how we do it when we're in leadership positions. We can really drive the culture. So.
Yeah, change it from within. I love that. Sabeerah, what are your projects?
Gigs and more gigs for the most part. Yeah, and putting out some more mixes. Shout out to my manager, she's in the chat, Chantel Diaz. If you need me to DJ, hit her up. You can hit me up and I'll probably forward it to her.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so just working on that. When it comes to Accessible Plus, we're working on upcoming festivals like Day in Vegas. Hopefully another festival after that. I can't say exactly what that festival is just yet. We will see when it shows up. And then getting ready for next year's Coachella. Pretty much that. It's a busy time right now for Black accessibility and just Black and people of color when it comes to accessibility right now. So yeah.
Sounds like we need to be following you on social to know what's going on.
Yes.
All of our panelists, I believe, are on social. If you need to find them, I'm sure they wouldn't mind dropping their links in the chat to make sure you can find them. They're also tagged in all of our promo for this event. And Wawa, what do you have going on? What projects are happening?
Well, Wawa's World is celebrating 10 years right now, and we're going to have a big show at the Deaf Nation World Expo in Las Vegas. This is coming up in August. So it's got about 15,000 people already registered, and so we'll be performing on a rooftop of one of the hotels that's there. So I'm really excited about that. So it's a collaboration of all the people who collaborated and worked with me through on some songs and producing and all that over the 10 years. So it's a thank you kind of thing. And so it's a humbling experience. I've traveled the world, done so many things. I've done acting. I've always been acting. So I've been doing both the music and acting at the same time. So the last TV show I did was Fear the Walking Dead. And so that was and so it's just going on. It's just auditioning, doing the music, and then I'm working on new music as well. It's more talks about crab theory. Are you familiar with that? Crab theory is what's happening is when you are on a rise, and then some people, they don't like you, they don't like seeing you blowing up. So they try to pull you down. They don't know what to do. So you're like, why are you doing this to me? That kind of thing. So the concept is more of everyone that's inside this barrel. There's so many crabs in the barrel. So when one person climbs up and then everyone trying to pull them down, they feel comfortable. So try to get them to think outside the box. Instead of trying to climb, why don't you destroy the box? This is where people put us in the box to eliminate it. Destroy that, see how far you get, and helping with lifting each other up. So that's what I'm working on that next album. So, but I've already completed 4 albums that was done over the years. So hopefully this is my 5th one coming out soon. Let's see.
A lot of 5th albums happening. I love it. I want to thank our panelists. Don't go away. We have some questions for you. And these questions are a little deeper than the questions we've been asking, so be prepared. I'm going to hop around. So for anyone who's working on the back end, I apologize. I'm going to ask questions out of order. So this question comes from Erica. Do you ever feel like there is a space to express your sexuality in such a hypersexual industry in a sex positive way? And
that's a great question. That's a big question.
That's my cousin, y'all.
I figured I'd start big.
Yeah, right. Well, Keith, do you have, because I love the way your take on this. So I want to, this is Lachi. I want to toss it to you, Keith.
Do I celebrate my sexuality in my music? Hell yes. The reason we do it is because, well, one, because being sexy is such a burden. But the other part is that we have to really talk about the fact, because we don't, if you're disabled, they look at you like you're asexual, like your disability eliminates your sex drive. That is so not the case. Damn it, that ain't the case. But so it does allow you, but there is that fine line about the hypersexualization of Blackness, particularly the hypersexualization of Black men, hypersexualization of Black women. What does colorism play into that? Are you fair-skinned, or you red boned, are you too dark? So I'm conscious historically of how that plays out, particularly coming from the generation where bitch was seen as such such an albatross to hang on the Black woman, to now where everybody is saying that's my bitch, or I'm that bad bitch, and how we are not intellectually agile enough to understand the nuances of communication. But do I find a space every chance I get? And if it's on a house beat, dubstep, reggae, you can put it to soca, put it on some classical. We're gonna talk about Marvin Gaye, turn out the lights type stuff. So yes, there are places we can do it, and because we have to celebrate the beauty that is the intimacy of being Black, disabled, and loving who we are.
I love that.
Such a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Sabeerah, I saw you come off mute and I didn't want to not give you a chance to respond.
Oh, I was just saying that's actually my cousin. So shout out to her for asking that question.
Thanks, cousin.
Yeah. Shout out to you.
Okay. Lachi, did you have a response?
So I have two sort of things that were like battling it out in my head. This is Lachi. So I think there always should be just space and room for those who actually identify as asexual, right? So there is just a whole contingent of people that don't identify with sexuality, and that's totally fine. But when we're talking about sexuality and disability, there is, like Keith said, just this, it's a ignorance mixed with not being exposed to it, of people just expecting people with disabilities to not be sexual beings, to be asexual, to be undesirable. And then that cross-sectioned with Blackness. Now, me as a Black woman, there are two ways that Black women are viewed, right? They're either hypersexualized, there's either hypersexualized on one end, or seen as completely undesirable on the other end, as, loud and, overbearing. And so there's this hard need a lot of times for Black women to say, I am sexy. But then there's also this other contingent of, no, I am intellectual, I'm smart, I'm all of the things, I'm a leader. And so there is a lot of tug of war at play. And as a triple threat, a woman with a disability, to have to also navigate that space is difficult. The way that I respond to that is that I do like to celebrate the fact that I am feminine and a woman, but I'm also a tomboy. And so I love to interplay just who I am. And I think that if you feel like a sexual being, if you feel sexy, despite what other people feel about you, despite if other people find you undesirable or whatever, I feel that you should express that the way you want to express it. I feel that all people with disabilities have whatever sexual desire that they want to have. And if you want to express that in your art, you should. You should toss it in people's faces and let people know, because there will always be that resistance against it until there is more exposure to it. This is Lachi, and I'm done.
No, you gave us a nice word, so we were just soaking it up. No, thank you for that. All right, I will steer us back into the not sexual questions. That was the only juicy one that I had for you. I do have a question. So Lachi, you mentioned something in passing while you were talking, and someone caught it. Tiffany actually caught it. You mentioned that you didn't start out proud to be disabled. And so Tiffany said, curious what that journey was like. If there was something that happened to the leader and the voice that she is today, and because you're, very open about being disabled. But this question is for anyone, like what happened? When was that switch for you where you were like, I'm a proud disabled musician and not just like, I want to just be a musician?
I actually want to toss this question to James, because I know that you have a perspective on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just like my personal journey, it was never really about like I never really I did, not from a musical standpoint or anything like that, in my life early on in my diagnosis. I was diagnosed like right before I turned 15, so navigating that with like all the high school stupid stuff that can make you feel insecure. I had this disability thrown in and I was like, oh great, got to deal with this. So I tried to hide it for just like a life perspective, I didn't want to call attention to it or anything like that. And so I went on, down that course for kind of as long as I could, but then honestly, kind of through music, when I started to get a platform and started to be visible with live performances and stuff, I started to feel a little bit more comfortable, I think, showing disability. And then I actually had an instance where I fell on stage in front of a bunch of people, and it just gave me this opportunity to talk about it because I couldn't hide it at that point. And so kind of from there on out, I was like, I'm going to talk about this. I'm gonna highlight it. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But it felt just very much for me like the right thing to do. So it kind of happened along that path. And once I started to really talk about it, I felt really empowered. I felt really, really good. And I actually felt way more confident than I ever had. And so, in life and in music, it was like, I'm going to do both of these things because I'm feeling really good about this. And I feel like something beneficial is happening for not even just myself, but if there might be somebody else who could potentially benefit from it. So that was how it was for me. It was never like, it was never shame or anything. It was just easy not to talk about it and kind of call attention to myself and have to answer questions that I really didn't want to answer. I just kind of wanted to be to myself and kind of live my life. But when that no longer was possible, then I said, hey, there's power in this. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I want to, if anyone else has an answer for that, I want to give y'all space, but I do have an answer as well.
I think for me, it was similar, but it was kind of the opposite. Like with me being born disabled, it was already a thing. And then I think my family always wanted me to be like this advocate, and I didn't know what that looked like. So I would like shy away from it. And it was just like, nah, I'm not trying to, become this like pedestal. I'm not trying to become this leader that, I just ended up becoming. But I didn't see myself as that because I just didn't want to steer anyone wrong or like speak for the table in case, someone had a different perspective with the same disability. So I think with that, with shying away from it, I found myself in spaces trying to just do what everybody else was doing and trying to figure that out, you know? Part of what got me into DJing was the fact that like I was, you know, in the crowd all the time and watching my friends just go crazy and get that energy. And I was like, I want to see what that's like. I want that too, you know? But I didn't think about, I think the impact it would have on myself and the community until I started doing it. But yeah, I think for me, it was very much like, you know, similar to what James was saying. I didn't really want to call attention to it. It just kind of happened as such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. Like, this is Lachi. Yeah, just growing up, you know, I'm a Black woman who is a daughter of African immigrants. And I had just always been taught that, you know, women are loud, Black people aren't very smart, and immigrants are weird, different, and poor, right? So I was like, okay, and being disabled and blind is just no. So I thought to myself, let me try my best to not be any of those things. So I did what I could to affect the whitest of white speaking voice, to always try to stay in my place as a female, to try to adopt as much Americanisms as possible, and just try to wear what everybody else was wearing so I didn't look like this foreign person, and of course, hide my disability. And so I floated on that for as long as I could. And it turned out that I had no clue who this person was. You know, when you lay your head on the pillow at night and you're just by yourself alone and you can think about your own thoughts, I was thinking someone else's thoughts, like for a long time in my life. And I got to a point where I was in high school and, you know, having very little friends, I would just, you know, keep to myself and do music and stuff like that. So I got to a point in high school where I was at a talent show and they said, Lachi, or well, at that time, my name was Lisa. And they said, Lisa, go up there and do your song or whatever. I had a song prepared, but I just did what was in my heart. And it was a song that I just kind of sang right off the bat called, I Don't Feel Like I Belong. I just was at a piano. I made up the words. I made up all the lyrics. And I was like crying my heart out in front of my high school, who I spoke to no one ever. And I sang this song and I got this standing ovation. No one had ever heard me say a word before. They just knew I did music. And I hadn't even known that I had that in my heart. And that was the beginning of my journey of becoming a musician. I know that sounds intense. And I think parts of that story is like, you know, a little exaggerated. But the point that I'm making is that music really told me who I was. And so I followed that chord. And as I continued to follow music, it eventually started allowing me to open up. You know, when I started finding myself in these big rooms with the Snoop Dogs and the Armin van Buurens, and being afraid to disclose was having me trip on wires and not knowing where the mic was in front of these people. And it was just biting myself in the face. So eventually I accepted myself as I accepted myself as a female first. Then I accepted myself as a Black person. Accepting myself as a blind person came last. But when I finally did, and that was a couple years ago, the first thing I did was form Ramped. Because like Sabeerah said, I didn't have anyone to point at. There was nobody on my vision board to say, I want to be that when I grow up. I couldn't close my eyes and think of the steps to being that because there wasn't a that there. And it's like such a passion. I'm like tearing up of really wanting to like make, you know, role models. God, I'm actually crying. This is actually really embarrassing. To make role models for people to look up to, so that these little 8-year-olds, like I was 8 years old, can look and say, hey, I can put that person on my vision board and eventually become that. Now, July is coming up and I'm doing a whole disability pride tour. Like what? I'm saying the word disability out loud in the name of my tour and sending it to like Sony and Universal and the same people I was afraid of. And so, you know, that's my journey. I went all out because Tiffany asked and she's like the CEO. So her question holds weight. But I think
Good thing.
but I think it's really important to just say that kind of thing, especially at a forum like this, because it is really tough to get over that hump of how do I just say I'm disabled to people and not be ashamed? And I think that it comes from finding your own inner strength. I found it through music. I found it through my talent. It's like, what is it within you where you find your strength and where you find your acceptance and where you find your truth? I say grab onto that and the rest will unravel.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
Wow.
Okay.
So I just want you to know you're getting so many hearts and so many crying faces and all sorts of things in the chat. People are wiping their faces and tears. So you have started the waterworks for everyone. So
I'm sorry, everybody.
I think the vulnerability is necessary, though. I think, you know, you talking, your story alone talks about like this hard exterior that you had to put up, and then you're breaking that down a little bit. And I think that vulnerability was necessary. So thank you for sharing your story. And I'm looking at the clock and I had no idea what time it was. We were just talking. So I think you ended us on a good note, but I'm going to ask everyone if you can share some final thoughts in a specific way. Can you give me 3 words or 1 sentence, not a paragraph, 3 words or 1 sentence that you want us to leave here with, something you want us to remember you by or take with us as we leave here? And I will start in reverse this time with Warren.
Well, my sentence is one of the models I live by is, what doesn't kill should make you stronger. Okay. Just let's leave it at that for you to mull on that.
I'll leave it. Sabeerah.
I think I want to quote Nipsey Hussle with this. Hustle and motivate, you know, stay on your mission. And if you have, you know, a drive, take that opportunity and go for it. Finish the mission.
Mm-hmm.
James.
Keep it pushing.
It goes back to breaking those barriers. I love it. Keith?
What I would leave you with is you did Black people wrong by saying you can only say 3 words, right? So I just want to put that cultural note into the air. Love you, though. It's not really a sentence, it's more of a sentiment. That your humanity is not defined by your human condition. It's defined by how you express it. So you are more than what your quote limitations are, what your body tells you, what your mind tells you, is what your soul elevates.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes. Lachi, what do you got?
Check out Ramped. 3 words.
Buy my album. There you go. That's 3 words.
Oh, man.
Google me.
Yeah, Google me, boo-boo. Google me. You will not be disappointed.
I say Google everyone, follow everyone, follow Ramped, follow Diversability. You know, everyone. I think we have a plethora of talented people here, and I was honored to be in the space with you. My words for you are take up space and unapologetically take up space, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone, thank you for being here with us. We are so grateful for you. And if we didn't get to your question, you know, DM somebody. I'm sure they'll answer you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
You guys have a great night. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you. Yes.